Professor Huang with us to introduce to us this remarkable phenomenon. Hello, dear viewers. It's my great honor to talk to you about the naked carp. So let's start with a brief introduction of naked carp. The official name for the naked carp would be the Qinghai Lake naked carp. So it is a very distinct creature in the Qinghai Lake. So why do the naked carp swim all the way back into the Qinghai Lake? Well, it is their natural habitat. So for most of its time, this fish were found in salty water, and they will only swim back into the river during spawning season. So the reason it swam back is for reproduction. This is a result of a long time evolution and evolvement. So in the fresh water, it will spawn and reproduce. You can see that a lot of fish, a lot of the naked carp are gathering here for spawning. So this makes this place an ideal location for the observation of such creature, as Professor Huang just mentioned. So what are the activities and the features on its way of swimming back? So most of the time, the carp were found in salty water in Qinghai Lake, but during spawning season, they will migrate back to the rivers for reproduction. It needs flowing water as an environment and also favorable temperature for it to survive. So during this time, the naked carp would swim upstream to complete the reproduction process. Its reproductive organ actually matures during the upstream journey. So each year, during starting from May, when the ice melts and temperature began to rise, there will be flowing water in the river, and that's when this migrating process began. In the first phase, which starts in June, it will mainly be the migrating process, that is the swimming part. And in the second phase, it will mainly be the mating and spawning and reproductive phase. So when the reproductive organ of the carp matures, it will begin the mating process. Usually, we can observe that the stronger the stream is, the bigger the wave is, the more we observe the upstream activity. Which means that the number of the naked carp also rises during this process. You mentioned that usually the carp would love to live in a salty water environment. So are they able to sense whether it is salty water or fresh water? Yes. this sort of carp is actually adaptive to salty water environment. However, for the newly born carp, they would have to first develop in fresh water. That's why the naked carp will have to swim upstream to spawn. Through our lens, we could find a massive number of naked carp that is gathering in the lake basin. We know that the Qinghai Lake is known for the coexistence of fish and bird. A lot of water bird in the Qinghai Lake basin would reproduce in this area. So they also would fly back during summer, which is precisely the migrating season for the carp as well. Usually, we could see the brown-headed gull, the great cormorant, and also bar-headed goose that are feeding on the carp. So this kind of coexistence between the migrating birds and migrating fish is a very unique feature, and also it is a center to the ecological environment of Qinghai Lake. Right now, we see a rising number of birds, which also is a result of the rising number of carp, because this is a very dynamic ecological environment. As I mentioned, a lot of the birds will feed on the carps. So when the carps numbers increases, so will that of the birds. In the 1950s, we see more birds and fish during that time, but during the past more than 70 years, because of the rising temperature and also some human activities, we see a depletion of natural resources. However, over the past years, due to our environmental conservation methods, we see a major increase in terms of the variety of creatures and the number of these species here. We can see that clearly from the number of naked carp. This would be a special location to facilitate the migration process for the carp. This is an important method that we took in the natural conservation area. There's one important feature to our preservation and conservation methods. That is, all of the samples are gathered here in the river. For a lot of fish, they're used to living in fresh water. They've already lost the ability to survive in salty water. That's why the Qinghai Lake naked carp is so special, because they are accustomed to salty water environment, which is also a very important part to the biodiversity in this water basins and water areas on land. Well, I've mentioned two preconditions for the reproduction of the carp. So first of all, we need to wait for the reproductive organs of the fish to be matured. And second reason is in the geological front. We need flowing water and also the forming of the stream so as for the carp to swim upstream. That's why the process would only begin after May each year when the ice melted. So this would be the result of natural selection. Sometimes the fish would swim upstream for more than 100 kilometers. I'm sure that will take a lot of strength, right? That is correct. So for most of the time, they will live in salty water to, first of all, to gather fat, and second, for its reproductive organ to mature. So when they have gathered enough fat, they actually preserve for themselves enough energy so as to complete the entire migration process. So this swimming process, migration process, would be a process to consume all the energy that it has preserved in winter. So how do we make full use of this migration activity? That is a very interesting question. Qinghai Lake naked carp is a very important natural resource for us. It has undergone severe sabotage and damage due to the deterioration of the natural environment. And right now we see a rising number due to the improvement of the ecological environment. So how do we make full use of these resources? The question is already on the table. We are still having a lot of discussion with the fast rising of the number of the carp in the future. If without control, it might compromise the ecological accommodation activity or capacity of the Qinghai Lake. So we must find ways to make use of these natural resources without endangering the species or damaging the environment. So due to our, based on our current calculation, it is safe to capture less than 20,000 naked carp on a yearly basis. This would be possible without damaging the species and the environment. But we do everything based on several conditions. First of all, we need to have enough reserves when it comes to the fish school, the number of the fish. So we need to undergo careful observation and supervision. And second, we also need a very sound management mechanism. In the past, we had the experiences like this. Once we lose the control, it will go astray. It will just get out of control. So we need to have a very strict rules and management policies. That's why we are still discussing this matter right now. We also are facing new challenges at the moment. So ecology is the resources, is a vault, and also a source of wealth. We need to preserve the natural environment and natural resources while making full use of the natural resources. Because, as you mentioned, that with the fast rising of the number of the naked carp, it might endanger or the other species or throw the regional ecological balance into a very volatile situation. So if the number rises to a point that it endangers or it's bigger than the capacity of the environment, there might be a food shortage for certain creatures or certain varieties, animal species here, which might cause a decrease of the number of certain species very quickly. So for naked carp, the big fish would actually feed on the small fish. So when there is a deficiency in terms of food, there might also be some internal disturbance within the species. Also, we need to monitor the ratio of male and female carp in the fish. So in the past, this ratio was 3:1, and in the 60s, it's 3.7:1, and currently the ratio has already risen to 7:1. So the change of the gender ratio can also affect the existence of the naked carp. As I mentioned, if we do not manage the resources well, there might be great turbulence after the number of the fish exceeds the capacity of the environment. So why do you think there is such a drastic rise in terms of the female against the male fish? Well, I think it's partly due to some of the human interventions. But we are still studying the reasons behind it, including the effect of the climate change. It might also be due to some of the environmental changes. So how big can a naked carp develop into? Well, a naked carp, according to our observation, can be as big as 40 centimeters long, which is about 15 years old. So when a carp is 15 years old, it will not reproduce anymore. So it would be a very ideal object for capturing. So this would be a direction for us to research into. We also have a very state-of-the-art technology to help us with the preservation. We actually published a paper in 2018 concerning the production of another fish species. But that species is already beyond rescue, so it's extinct. It is virtually has extincted. But the Qinghai Lake naked carp is quite similar to that fish in terms of its living habit. So I was invited to visit the research center for the Qinghai Lake naked carp, and we initiate this research process. But at that time, we did not have enough statistics or data to do the research. It would be impossible without enough data and statistics. That's why we've worked with relevant companies and research institutes to kick off this special observation project, which is based on AI and aims to monitor and observe the underwater species. Right now, we see very good results concerning this project. Its accuracy rate can be above 90%. As you mentioned that this project started 6 years ago, so what have you achieved? What have you observed during the past 6 years? We now carry out monitoring in the entire stream. We have a dozen of indicators, including the length and age of the carp. We now have already published paper in terms of the number and time for the migration process with the width of the river. And also we've found that around 3 to 5 p.m. it will be the most ideal time for the fish to migrate. Therefore, you might be able to witness the most carp during this hour. What's more, when the stream becomes stronger, the number of the fish undergoing the upstreaming process would also increase. Thank you. If you are interested in observing this process, make sure that you visit here during 3 to 5 this afternoon. If you visit this place at night, you could come to this specific location because this whole place is lit up. Last question, Professor Huang. What other functions will this location serve in the future? First of all, we aim to gather more data and statistics to carry out more research. More importantly, in the managerial front, we need to better protect the naked carp resources in the Qinghai Lake, and every decision has to be made based on the scientific outcome, scientific rules and principles. We have to answer a lot of important questions, and that will not be possible without enough data and research. So in the future, this 24/7 monitoring system should be promoted to all 5 streams connected to the Qinghai Lake. If that kind of observation network can be formed, we can have a much clearer picture as to the number of the fish and the number of newborn fish, newborn carp in this place, and so on. Therefore, we are calling for more attention from the relevant parties in department. Thank you. Now you can take a few minutes to observe the migrating fish from 2021. After the establishment of this observation station, we already see very fruitful results in terms of scientific research. We can see from time to time that the fish are swimming upstream and jump out of the water to finish the process. Our next guest is Ye Guansheng, who will be introducing to us more about the naked carp. Hello, Mr. Ye, say hello to our audience. Good morning, dear viewers. Thank you, sir. Would you like to tell us more about the construction here? I will brief you on the designing process, the designing of such a project. As you can see, in that box, there will be the analyzing of the image. And on the background, we set up this special background so that we can have a clearer shot of the rivers when we take photos. We also have set up lightings beneath the water, so that at night we also can have a very clear view of the migrating carp. This project is largely attributable to the development of AI technologies. We have done a lot of adjustment to the structure so as to get clearer picture and pictures that are more in time. So under weather condition like today, which is quite a fine weather, we can get an accuracy rate of more than 90%. It can identify the length, the width of the carp, and then calculate its weight and age. Some of the carp swim faster than others, so we can also monitor the fish of swimming. You can also monitor the frequency for the tail waving. Some waves faster, some slower. We could number the fish according to the different indicators. In this way, we could know the parameters of each and every fish and every carp according to our report. This is all based on AI technologies. You can also monitor certain fish so as to trace its motion. You can monitor and trace the fish so that you can have a clear number of how many fish have successfully swum upstream and how many of you have fall back and restart. We can also monitor the forage or vegetations beneath and on the ground. As you mentioned, this seems to be a very simple installation. However, it's quite useful and it can give us a lot of numbers. That is true. At first, I was working with Professor Huang concerning the establishment of such a structure. We started the construction of this project in 2018. We looked up some international global literature. However, research in this front is still has a very big gap. That's why we decided to do research on this front. This is also a great challenge for us. At first, we were not very confident. We only set up a shelter, and there was a bracket above our head with a few lights installed on it. But later, Mr. Chen Shu mentioned that they have completed this process very quickly. So we have installed 2 new glass sheets so as to better observe the activities of the carp. And also with the backlight at night, you can also have a very clear picture of the fish. Right now, you can take very beautiful pictures of the migrating process. So it is of scientific and aesthetic value at the same time. So this little cabin seems to be insignificant, but there are a lot of important installations inside. If we put it into a greenhouse, the operation of the machine might be smoother, but it will not be of realistic value. We have to put everything in the real ecological environment so as to gather the most accurate statistics. For example, in some of the countries around the world, they will have an enclosed environment for the convenience of observation. However, that would be insignificant because you have taken the fish out of their living habitat to do the observation. It would be meaningless. So I think everything has to be done in the real natural environment, in the real natural habitat of the carp. It is the only way to get the real, authentic number and statistics so that they will make sense scientifically. As you can see, this installation seems to be simple, but it will make it much easier for us to observe the fish at night without sabotaging its natural living habitat. The numbers are real time. And also, the image that you get will be easier to trace. So AI will help us to better trace the activity of the fish. So can you tell us more about the equipment inside this little wooden cabin? The camera lens were connected to an exchanger inside the cabin, and then the exchanger is connected to a server. The server is the center of the computing power. There's also a GPU accelerator inside for us to better process the image, so the information and statistics we gather with the sensors can be quickly transmitted to the processor and to the GPU to undergo the processing procedure. So this will be real-time and real-time data that is gathered here. You can see some real-time rectangles. That is the fish that have been recognized by the AI technology, and the numbers will be calculated in a timely fashion. So from 1950 to today, we observed some of the changes of living habit for the naked carp, and we are still uncertain as to some of the reasons behind such an alteration. Our guess is that there might be the factor of a temperature or the flowing speed of the river, and so on. But there might also be the result of human intervention or activity. But we can leave that scientific question to Professor Huang. Last question, Mr. Ye. How do you predict the evolvement of your scientific observation work? Well, in terms of the upgrading of the equipment, we hope that the image can be more precise and less imprecision. Second, I would hope that the current equipment is only installed in the lower stream. It can affect, reflect some of the migrating process. But if we could set up such a installation in the mid and upper stream of the river, we might have a clearer picture as to the number of the carp and also their activity pattern. If we could have more observation installation, we can have a better picture as to the natural resources of the Qinghai Lake Basin. Thank you, Mr. Ye, for taking the question. So Professor Huang and Mr. Ye have introduced to us the features of the naked carp and also some of the equipment and technology of this area. So from today, we will kick off a special program series concerning the migrating of the naked carp in the Qinghai Lake Basin. So that's all for the live stream today. Please follow us for more updates. Thank you.